clip from Dr. Sanjay Gupta's documentary, Weed, which airs on CNN this Sunday night. Sanjay spent a year investigating the fight over medical marijuana. More and more Americans are using it. Just a few days ago, Washington, D.C. opened up its first medical marijuana dispensary. And CNN's chief medical correspondent, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, joins me now. Sanjay, welcome to you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, go on, you've been looking at this for a year, and I want to remind you that in 2009, you wrote a Time magazine article entitled Why I Would Vote No on Pot. You've changed your mind.
I have, and as part of my thinking recently, I've apologized for some of the earlier reporting because I think we've been terribly and systematically misled in this country for some time, and I did part of that misleading. If you look at all the papers that are written in the United States about marijuana, the vast majority of them are about the harm. That we fund studies on harm, we don't fund studies on benefit nearly as much. So it gives a distorted picture. But I didn't look far enough, I didn't look deep enough, I didn't look at labs in other countries that are doing some incredible research. I didn't listen to the chorus of patients who said, not only does marijuana work for me, it's the only thing that works for me. I took the DEA at their word when they said it's a Schedule I substance and has no medical applications. There was no scientific basis for them to say that.
So when New York Mayor Bloomberg was quoted as saying medical marijuana is the greatest hoax of all time, what do you say to him?
I'm surprised. I follow a lot of the mayor's comments quite closely. I listen to those comments as well. As part of those same comments, he was saying that the potency of marijuana has gone up. That is true. It has gone up probably over the last several years. But I urge him to look at the scientific papers. I was just looking at them again in preparation for your show. The science is there. This isn't anecdotal. This isn't in the realm of conjecture anymore. I mean, for a long time, we've just ignored these papers. But this was a drug, that was used for thousands of years.
Now, in your documentary, you get into the effects of medical marijuana, which sometimes can be quite instant. It's quite dramatic.
It really can. It works, and it can work very quickly. In fact, let me just show you.
I always have two strains.
Meet 19-year-old Chaz Moore. He uses many different strains of marijuana, many of them high in CBD, to treat his rare disorder of the diaphragm.
My abs will lock up.
That's why he's talking this way, almost speaking in hiccups, like he can't catch his breath. It's called myoclonus diaphragmatic flutter.
This fluttering here, it's annoying, but it becomes painful pretty quickly, I imagine.
Yeah, after 15, 20 minutes, this is where I can start to really feel it.
He's about to show me how the marijuana works. He's been convulsing now for 7 minutes.
How quickly do you expect this to work?
Within the first 5 minutes. And I'm done.
That's it.
That's it.
It was actually less than a minute.
Depending on the attack in the day.
I mean, that is pretty extraordinary.
He was on so many different meds, Piers. It was a table full of meds that doctors had prescribed for him for this condition, including OxyContin, Valium. Any of those medications in too high a dose could have been really problematic, and they didn't work. I mean, look, the proof is becoming increasingly clear, I think, if you look for it.
Let's take a short break. When we come back, we're going to make things a bit lively, Sanjay. We're going to bring in Howard Samuels, the CEO of the Hills Treatment. Now, you and he have clashed horns before. We're going to do it again after the break because he does not agree with you, and he's going to be quite forceful about it. Let's get to that after the break. The medical marijuana controversy rages on in America. Should it be legal or not? Let's debate it. Back with us now is Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Also joining us is Howard Samuels, who's a former addict turned founder of the Hills Treatment Center for Drug and Alcohol Rehabilitation. Howard Samuels, we've spoken before about this. You feel very strongly from your own experiences as a personal addict and treating other addicts that it's a real gateway drug, marijuana, and we should not be encouraging it to be legalized.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think that the doctor has a very good point that for medical purposes, marijuana can be very, very useful. But you have to understand, the vast majority of people that use weed use it to get loaded. They use it to get high. And look, I'm not here to say that it's, worse than alcohol. Of course it's not worse than alcohol. But why in the world would we legalize another drug so our nation's youth have another substance to abuse and medicate their feelings with? And this is, to me, the issue. we don't want to go from one extreme, reefer madness, which we know is a total exaggeration, but we don't want to go to the other extreme where we legalize this drug and endanger so many of our young people.
Okay,
we want to find a healthy balance.
Okay, let me throw that point to Sanjay. It's a point well made, quite reasoned. Sanjay.
Well, I mean, look, it can be difficult to sort of stratify the legitimate patients who have use for cannabis not only as a medication, but as the only medication for their suffering. And as the doctor says, people who just want to get loaded or get high. That's true.
But if it's no more harmful than alcohol or tobacco, why shouldn't it be legalized? Isn't there an inconsistency in government policy?
I think so. And let me take it a step further than that. I think it's irresponsible of the medical community not to offer this as an alternative. 2 points. First of all, these other medications that we talk about for pain, for example, morphine, Dilaudid, OxyContin, Vicodin, you name it. Every 19 minutes in this country, Piers, in the United States, someone dies of an accidental prescription drug overdose. This is no joke. Every 19 minutes. As we investigated this, I couldn't find one documented case of someone dying of a marijuana overdose. We also know that for some situations like neuropathic pain, which is that lancinating, terrible pain people can get in their limbs or extremities, sometimes marijuana is the only thing that can actually work.
I've known someone with cancer who used it, and it had huge beneficial effects. I mean, my point to you, Howard Samuels, is this, is that I'm going to make a shocking revelation here. I've tried cannabis when I was a younger lad, and I've also had to have Vicodin when I broke some ribs falling off, embarrassingly, a Segway in Santa Monica. And I can tell you that it was the Vicodin, which I was prescribed by my doctor, which gave me a massively higher high than the cannabis ever did. I couldn't see the logic between making the Vicodin a legally prescribed drug and making cannabis this demonized drug. Explain to me the difference.
Well, I have to agree with you. I mean, I have no disagreement with that. I mean, I don't have an issue with marijuana being used for certain pain things. I mean, of course it's safer than Vicodin. I mean, I've had patients die off Vicodin. I've never had anybody die off marijuana, but I have had people come to me, hundreds of people that I've had to treat that have addiction to marijuana, that have serious emotional side effects as a result of that. So I think the issue here is, you know, being able to decriminalize marijuana without question, but not making it legal.
But let me ask you this then. Let me ask you this then.
Okay, I think that it's safe. Okay, because it's not.
Right. I think you're slightly softening your position though from when I last spoke to you, because unless I'm wrong, the logical extension of your argument is that we should be banning all sorts of prescription drugs, probably alcohol as well, and tobacco. They should all be banned as well as cannabis, because that's the logical way of looking at your argument.
No, I never, and I'm sorry if you misunderstood me, that all these drugs do have a place. The problem is that we don't have a medical restrictions, that these drugs are all too open on the market for abuse. Okay? Marijuana needs to be a controlled substance, not legalized where we have commercials and we're sort of, you know, the corporations are talking about which drug to get loaded on. You know, marijuana this, marijuana that.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay. Let me get to Sanjay.
We have to come up with a different concept.
Okay.
Other than legalized or not.
Let me go back to Sanjay. Let me ask you, Sanjay. I've made my stunning confession. I tried a bit of cannabis when I was younger. Have you tried it?
I have tried it.
What effect did it have on you compared to, say, drinking alcohol or whatever?
Well, you know, the irony is in some ways, because I've been working on this documentary, it was a while ago that I tried this. I didn't particularly care for it, actually. It made me kind of anxious, and it wasn't a very pleasant feeling, I think. And I talked to a lot of people who've had similar sort of experiences. But from a medicinal standpoint, this idea that it can provide something that isn't already provided, I think the doctor, you know, he's sort of saying you're going to see ads for it, making it sound like it's some over-the-counter drug that everyone can buy. Right now, it's listed as the most dangerous substance. It's in the category of most dangerous substances in America.
I think.
The addiction is possibly real, about 9%. Put it in context, cocaine is about 20%. That's actually considered less dangerous than marijuana. Alcohol has a higher rate of addiction. Smoking, 30%, and that leads to far more deaths than marijuana. So I just don't quite understand the moral equivalence that the doctor is making here.
Right. Howard Samuels, it's always good to talk to you. Well, my final word to you, Howard Samuels.
I'm not saying marijuana is more dangerous than cocaine. Of course it's not. You know,
the U.S. government
ridiculous.
is saying that.
I am saying, though, that marijuana should not be legalized because it is harmful to the emotional state of people have long-term exposure to it. And I've seen that, and anybody in the treatment field is going to tell you the same thing.
But isn't that, Howard Samuels, let me jump in. Let me jump in. Isn't that also true, though, of so many other things? I mean, isn't it true of alcohol, tobacco, Vicodin, and everything else? Is that you will have a percentage of people. You have a percentage of people. So, but here's the point that Sanjay's making: is there has to be surely a consistency.
It's not to legalize it.
Right, but
we're doing the same thing. We're giving more people an opportunity to get loaded. Why do we want to support that?
Okay, last word to you, Sanjay.
Well, look, I'm not quite sure I follow the doctor's arguments here. I think it is a potentially very effective medicine that has not been given a fair shake for 70 years in this country. I think it can treat things that other medicines that exist now that are far more dangerous, far more toxic, lead to far more deaths, cannot treat. It's bizarre to me, quite frankly. I think it's inhumane to these patients who can't get this treatment. I met patients in Colorado who can get treatment, but they can never leave their state. It's ridiculous. And the doctor, I think, maybe he would agree with me, maybe he won't, I'm not sure. I don't understand his position, but it is irresponsible, I think, of the medical community not to have this as an option. I have children. I don't want them getting loaded, as he says, on this stuff either. That's not the point.
Right.
The point is that we're trying to help take care of people, and we should not take marijuana off the table as an option here.
Sanjay, got to leave it there. Good to talk to you.
And I totally agree with you. But we shouldn't legalize it so our kids have an option to get loaded on a daily basis.
You've made your point. You've made your point, sir, very loudly and clearly. It's a debate that will carry on raging because Americans are talking about this up and down the country, and more states are beginning to legalize it for medicinal reasons. Anyway, Sanjay's documentary, Weed, airs this Sunday at 8 p.m. on CNN.